on to part 3 of the alarming truth behind anti-Mormonism. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the intro this time round, but let's go ahead and jump in. Part 3 is called Postmodern Atheism is Paving the Way for a New and Destructive Moral Order. I can already tell you there's issues with that, but let's go ahead and hear the case. To be clear, people who become atheists don't suddenly become moral monsters. Their moral views shift, but they generally have more in common with moral beliefs of their religious friends than they have in contrast. Yeah, that part is actually fairly uncontroversial. However, one of the problems with the rise of atheism is that it comes with delayed consequences, like the frog in the pot of water, who doesn't jump out because the heat only gradually rises. Most atheists are unaware of where their belief system will lead society. I actually had to do a quick check here before I started recording, because this, again, multiple issues with this. First of all, appeal to consequence, basically saying that we should be scared of the consequence, and even if it's we get there through seeking the truth. I mean, there's no argument here for the church being true. So his argument is basically that even if the church is false, we should still pretend like it's true, because the consequence, in his mind, is that we're going to become this immoral state as we become too atheistic. Very bad argument to begin with. Very little reason to take that seriously, but even without the appeal to consequence, it's just not really true. The three most atheistic countries, not atheistic, let's be honest here, least religious countries are China, Sweden, and Czech Republic. Now, if you're going to go ahead and try to point out China as your example, it's got a lot of issues that have nothing to do with belief or the lack thereof. It's recovering from being in a communist state, and while they are still fairly strong on being told exactly what they should do, what they can do, and all that, basically the state is almost a religion there, just like it was in the USSR before it was broken up. You actually had it treated essentially as a religion. The state was your religion in that situation. Stalinism and the like is basically, even if you don't have religion there, you make the state into the religion, so you have essentially the same rules of religion in place. If you want to try to use that as your case, I can argue all day on that one, but if you look at the other ones, Sweden and Czech Republic, you will actually find fairly decent crime rates. We're not talking about extreme violence going on or immorality of people doing stuff that you would think is the most immoral thing in the world. In fact, overall, people do better in those environments, the secular environments. I wouldn't say that China is secular, so that's another real good way to know whether or not you're talking about a country that respects um, people instead of religions. The U.S. is secular. We do not respect one religion over another, at least by law, but our politicians are making a pretty fairly thin line as far as um, where religion is allowed to tread and maybe it shouldn't. Um, but you know what? That's neither here nor there right now. That's a completely different video to get into regarding tax exemptions and all that, where they are given special privilege without actually having to verify they are doing the things that should give them those privileges. Um, yeah, again, different video. The reason for this is simple. It's simply that most atheists have had a religious upbringing and live in an environment that has been deeply influenced by Christianity. It is one thing to reject revealed religion, and another to abandon mindsets, attitudes, and values which you don't even realize have been socialized into you since birth. Thus, many atheists don't realize that while they have rejected God, everything about the way they see the world is still deeply influenced by religion. Again, this is why I looked up the least religious countries. With Sweden and Czech Republic, you do not have this primarily Christian upbringing. I mean, the society is not heavily influenced by that. Even go to the UK, to England, and places where you don't have a strong presence of heavy religiosity, and you will find that they do not have the same issues that you're describing, that you think that we would go to if you have to be Christian to have good morals. So, unless you can actually provide facts, some evidence, some data to back up these claims, I'm sorry. No. No. It doesn't work to just claim it. It never has. For now, many atheists can look around and say we are freed from the foolish traditions of our fathers, and feel content that nothing drastic has changed in the process. But in the long run, much will change in a society driven by atheism. Again, let's say secularism, because secular means that basically the state doesn't enforce or doesn't play a role in religion. Basically, it is removed from, you are, there's the wall of separation between them. That doesn't mean that people can't be religious. No, nothing of the sort. They are allowed to believe what they want to believe in a secular government. They have the freedom of religion. But that also means that the government doesn't sit here and pretend like that is some overbearing good, like ours does right now in the U.S. Because the facts just don't bear that out. Secular countries out there do not have issues of immorality that are being hinted at here. Fortunately, following the logic of atheism to its natural conclusion is far from an impossible task. That's not pretty good. For 150 years, pioneering atheist thinkers, philosophers, and intellectuals have been describing the moral order that naturally emerges from postmodern atheism. While many schools of thought exist within philosophy, a consensus is converging on the rejection of truth that cannot be scientifically confirmed. Apologies for that. That cannot be scientifically confirmed or assessed, which, as we will see, has transformational consequences. check out Sam Harris. This is what we know. For thousands of years, morality, including non-Christian morality, has been based on beliefs about human purpose, the immorality of the soul, and other transcendent truths. All beliefs that are religious in nature, as they cannot be scientifically evaluated. However, postmodern atheism rejects all these notions in the long term for the same reason that it rejects religion. They cannot be studied or confirmed by scientific inquiry. This is quite the claim. Being atheist does not mean that you can't still buy into other aspects, and even if you are completely rational and you reject, basically are materialistic, as you would probably refer to it, then that doesn't mean that you're going to suddenly fall into immorality. I mean, the whole idea that you treat others the way that you would want to be treated, one of the big tenets of Christianity, is actually fairly well evidenced by just really looking at how societies benefit from such behavior. So you know what? Science can't say anything? Really? Really? Science is the review of things that can be seen, and if we can see it, then it can be scientifically shown. So if science shows that treating people good is good, then that is science saying that you should do that. I'm sorry, this is not overly complex. Yes, I'm simplifying. I'm just kind of going with a real basic look at it, but you know what? This is a ridiculous thought here. Instead, atheism replaces the foundations of morality with what can be seen, heard, touched, and otherwise measured. Since this eliminates notions of God and the interplay between good and evil, we can stop looking outward to ask, what do God's laws or the universe's laws require of us? And instead we can begin looking inward and ask, more fully than ever before, wait, what do I want? Well, guess what? Excuse me. Try not to do that in videos very much, but I'm also trying not to do lots of cuts, so apologies for the extra noise and for me having issues with talking here, but first of all, atheism is not selfishness. I know that religious people think it is in many ways, because they think it's selfish to sit here and try to figure things out on their own instead of accepting any form of authority. But it's not selfishness. And God's laws have nothing to do with it. Read the moral landscape. This is a non-religious review of how we can figure out what's good versus bad. Not evil in the way that you're defining it, because the evil you're talking about is basically a religious concept. You're actually trying to divide everything into two groups, basically a false dichotomy, where really things aren't split quite so clearly. And there are still some concerns because most of the things that you can say are good are good with a certain moral goal in mind. And if someone has a different moral goal, then you might actually see what is the best way to get there change in comparison. But that is within religion as well as without. So this is not something that is new. In fact, you actually have to dig into morality a bit and actually go beyond what the Bible says to actually get into this. Because the Bible is a lot of things that you don't think are moral. I mean, slavery is in the Bible and is not rejected by the New Testament. In fact, Jesus says that slaves should obey their masters. That doesn't sound like a statement that slavery should be disbanded. And I know a lot of the statements that are made regarding this. You know what? You can go ahead and make the excuses if you want. I can probably do a video down the road on this topic more thoroughly. But the reality is, the Bible is not some beautiful source of morality. For every positive moral that you take from the Bible, I can almost guarantee show you the Bible advocating or at least suggesting that it's not bad or the opposite. No killing? How about we take out entire civilizations, killing everyone, man, woman, and child, and even livestock. Basically, don't let any of them survive. We're not even talking about allowing surrender. We're talking about destroying the innocent and the guilty together. Guess what? It sounds like death, like killing, is not the evil that the Bible says it is in the Ten Commandments. So, exactly how do you sit here and say that one fits with the other? I mean, I understand war, you have to change the rules a little bit to kill. The intent being to kill man, woman, and child, as well as the animals? Really? Please, come on. This is in the Bible. If you want, I can actually do a video on the verses and go through it more in depth, but I'm just going to leave it there for right now. Rather than morality being driven by belief in standards of right and wrong, good and evil, and other such dualism, morality will eventually be driven solely by human desires, cravings, and impulses, as these are actually powerful. Simply put, society will be governed completely by what individuals think they want and need, as opposed to a sense of duty and obligation to some higher truth about good and evil or directives from heaven. You don't take yours from heaven either. Even what's in the Book of Mormon, you are not, you aren't living in a theocracy, and you aren't trying to at this time. You are not, well, technically the U.S. is more at war than it should be, so maybe you see that as fairly moral, because that seems to be the overarching trend of the Book of Mormon. But you look at exactly what the teachings are in the Book of Mormon, and a lot of them aren't lived up to any more than the biblical ones. So you are actually taking a lot of your morality already from society. Now you can say that you're taking it also from the modern prophets, and they seem to adjust what they say to what is currently good. So I think it's actually backwards in the church, and they see what where the line is, and they are sometimes forced, kicking and screaming, like they were with accepting blacks into the priesthood, and with allowing or stopping polygamy and stuff like that. They basically have to be moved on these topics against their will. But then all of a sudden, it was revelation once they finally went there. So I'd say the church does it backwards, personally. The reason that status, wealth, and power all matter so much to so many people is because they gain the respect of others. I think I skipped. To understand what all this means, we must identify the principal need that drives human society. The answer, according to the great thinkers of the ages, is this: respect. More than anything else, people crave respect. They may want sex, but sex from someone who thinks nothing of you is unsatisfying. They may desire love, but to be loved by someone who doesn't see you as equal is demeaning. See you as equal. I have something to say about that. Maybe not this video, but the church does not see men and women as equal on many levels. But again, let's continue. They may crave empathy, but without respect, there's no real empathy. The reason that status, wealth, and power all matter so much is to so many people is because it gains you the respect of others. I went ahead and lumped all that together. People crave respect, yes, but I wouldn't say that that is like the guiding force of people when they aren't in religion. In fact, guess what? People in religion crave respect, and they seek it all the time, and they just use religious means to try to get there in a lot of cases. This is not something that changes when you leave religion. Regarding sex, I don't even see your point. I'm sorry. People might want sex, but they want sex from people who like them back. Okay, so this also dives into the next section where you say desire love, but to be loved by someone who doesn't see you as an equal is to mean wrong. Again, that one is just a bag of worms. I don't know that I'm even going to dive into this. This is just a whole bunch of ridiculous statements here. Yes, people desire love, but people have desired love whether or not people have been equal. And there have been times throughout history where there's been far less equality than we are getting to with secular values. Honestly, once again, the churches have been brought to this position more against their will than by it. The world has had to move the church to its current positions. Not just the Mormon church, but Christian churches across the board. They had much worse situations for women in the past, and guess what? When basically the world started to say, hey, women are equal, the church had to be brought to that position. It wasn't church first. You could say people in the church, fine, people in the church, but they didn't do it because that's what the church taught. They did it in spite of what the church taught, and then the church followed. Kind of interesting that you're kind of portraying it to be the opposite of that. This desire for respect is the same reason that studies have shown that people would rather take a low salary if it is higher than most of their peers. Low salary, even if it is higher than most of their peers, rather than accept a high salary that is lower than their peers. Okay, position-wise lower. Okay, maybe wrote that really weird. They would rather struggle financially than to be the low man on the social totem pole. They value respect over even money. Okay. Again, I don't see you actually referencing the polls on this. I'm sure that this is true for a lot of people. I'm not sure it's true for everyone. Respect is important, but not and they can receive respect by working hard in many cases, even if they are below others on the totem pole. So I think this might be more of a statement you're making based on what you perceive than based on actually anything you can demonstrate. So, and why did Cain commit the first murder? Because Cain couldn't stand that God had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offerings God had not respect. Now let's go ahead and just play this out here. What is Cain's what does Cain do? He works in the field. God does not like sacrifices from the field. So while this is something from Cain's heart, God rejected it. I don't see why Cain is evil at this point. God has rejected the sacrifice that Cain offered. Now, you can argue intent. You can argue what's in the mind. And you're trying to do that here. You're trying to read Cain's mind. The Bible doesn't say what Cain's thought process was when he killed Abel. Let's go ahead and pretend for a second that Cain's thought process was, why is this rejected? Maybe I didn't give something I love enough. What do I love more? I love my brother more. Maybe I should sacrifice him. Now, of course, that's not explicitly said in the Bible either. Both are conjecture based on the little bit of information that you see there in what I would say is fiction. But ultimately, you do not have any way to say that God, Cain did it for this reason more than I say Cain did it for that reason. I mean, they both are supporting God. Either way, rejected Cain's sacrifice. So, initially, what do you think Cain is thinking at that point? I think mine actually has a rational explanation that yours does not. Jealousy is a big thing, but if he's doing it to impress God, wouldn't that be the opposite? Now, if he kills him because he loves him more, then that's actually trying to figure out what God wants and doing, and it follows the story far better, in my opinion. The powerful desire for respect is held in check by a belief in God, but it is unleashed once the last vestiges of religious influence are eliminated from society. At least religious governments or religious countries again. I'm not going to go through it all again, but this is not backed up by reality. Understand what I mean by this? Consider the recent campaign to legalize same-sex marriage. Proponents of same-sex marriage loudly proclaim that love wins, but this was never about love. Same-sex couples already had the right to love whomever they wanted. They can have in consent with anti-discrimination laws or civil unions, both of which religion has fought tooth and nail. But it wasn't enough. No, what they really wanted was for their unions to be just as respected as anyone else's. Marriage was an honor afforded only to heterosexual couples, and same-sex couples were going to feel slighted until that changed. It's also about legal ways of being able to share your insurance and other things. I mean, there were all sorts of cases over and over again. Religion, again, is fighting every step of the way. As far as this topic goes, you clearly are looking at it through rose-colored lenses because you're looking at it from only the religious perspective. And morality is not dictated by who you are attracted to, who you want to marry, or who you are in a union with. This is a statement that basically says that the morals stated in religion should trump those that we know are superior. And you have plenty of people within the church who would actually state that it's not a moral thing to be gay or lesbian. And honestly, I tend to agree with them. I don't think that it is a moral statement of the person. But your church says otherwise. In fact, they will even go so far as the feelings aren't the sin, it's acting upon them. You need to overcome these demons. This is common within the church. So, you sitting here and saying anti-discrimination or civil unions, why don't you tell the church not to discriminate when they are sitting there telling everyone that if they act on them, then they are doing evil? Basically, the church's position. Oh, but the church says it's what must be right, so that is by definition what it should be, right? That's basically what I'm guessing your response would be. You see, when people begin rejecting moral codes because they are based on transcendent truths, they shift from feeling ashamed about falling short of moral standards and become angry that anyone would condemn their actions in the first place. When you get to the point where you're murdering or breaking some of the moral laws that are actually laws or are really important, you're not going to be yelling that anyone would condemn their actions in the first place. No, they are still going to be in the same situation that they're in now. You just won't have the ability of adding religious shame on top of it. They begin to feel indignant that any person or institution in society would dare to say that one choice, one lifestyle, or one belief has greater moral merit than another. I could actually use your whole situation with polygamy here and the church's movement on this again, because clearly it had to follow society, not the other way around. I've already given a couple examples as well with LGBT and other such, but polygamy, I think, just makes the point really well, as they change their opinion based on what society says. And same as accepting blacks, and when it became such a big deal that they were still rejecting blacks from the priesthood, and they're starting to really feel the pressure, all of a sudden you get some new revelation about it. And my guess is eventually the same will happen with LGBT. I'm guessing it will take 10, 20 years. We're going to be on a different prophet or two down the road before they can have such a revelation from God, where the people who are currently the most opposed to it will slowly be replaced by people who are less opposed, and they will suddenly have this great inspiration from God and tell the church that you should accept them. And while we aren't promoting that people should do it, we should not oppose people who have chosen to, or some such crap. I mean, I'm actually going into a religious mindset kind of drives me nuts. Yeah, the consequence is that society begins to gravitate around radical equality. That is, people will fight and fight until society cannot and will not recognize that any choice is better than another, that any lifestyle, belief, or action has more moral merit than another. You're basically going slippery slope here. Society still will have societal standards, and that will not change. Once again, these religious countries will come up. Most postmodern atheist philosophers, following the logic of atheism, say that all differences, such as gender and family hierarchy, must be eliminated in the process. They claim that once the forces of radical equality are unleashed upon the old system of traditional morality and institution, our world will be transformed into something that even they cannot fully conceive. We've been saying postmodern atheist philosophers for a bit. Please list your sources, honestly. I'm actually curious who you think these postmodern atheist philosophers are. I'm not sure that they're actually quoting them right, or that they're even stating that their ideas are correctly. I mean, how would I know if you won't say who they are? I think this is more you just trying to say what you think they would say. Basically, well, I think atheism is this, so they would actually feel this, instead of actually doing any form of reading or looking into it. I could be wrong, but when you don't list your sources, there's not a whole lot you can do to back it up except when maybe provide them. So for right now, I'm actually rejecting your statements here. I just don't see any point in giving them any credence. What is clear is that every time society allows one choice, one lifestyle, one belief to be honored above another, someone must feel dishonored. And nothing creates more anger and unrest than to be dishonored, to be respected less than your peers. And so an atheist society will continue to struggle and struggle under the banner of equality until the world cannot tell a moral difference between two choices. Again, very incorrect. I see no reason to buy any of that whatsoever. They will not be able to judge people for making choices that don't impact others, meaning if it's a self choice, what I do should not be something that you judge me over if it doesn't affect you or those around us. What I do in myself, you might think is a strong moral issue, but honestly, you can state it all you want. It doesn't make it actually any more so. I mean, that is you trying to push your authority over me. And I don't see that as a good thing. I mean, this is an authoritarian statement here. Your argument here is that authority must be respected because otherwise we will fall into chaos. The same argument has been made throughout time. It was made against getting rid of slavery. It was made against about letting blacks be equal and about women being equal and blah 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 blah. All this stuff has been said countless times, and even your own article shows that you think equality is valuable, but just not to the degree that it should be, or that the world understands it should be. That doesn't mean all choices are equal, and no one that I know of actually says that. I'm not going to sit here and say that no one has said that, but no one I know. Choices have consequences, and those consequences are good and bad, and those based on what is good for the society will determine what rules are in place and how people are. I mean, honestly, this could take 5 videos just to go through this portion right here because you are spilling a bunch of crap. And if this is what is required to lead up to your aha moments in the next point, I think we're going to have a crap moments instead. Alright. Hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm sure that people will dislike this video in their own ways, but if you comment, I will try to respond and at least have a conversation. I'm not someone who's completely blind to considering other points of view. So just let me know what I got wrong, and I will reconsider, or if you think I got things right, I wouldn't mind hearing from you, and maybe you can provide me further information to help bolster it. But once again, this was unscripted. I did not read through the whole thing before I recorded it. I only read the first couple paragraphs, because based on the title, I knew I'd probably have to look up a couple things regarding least religious countries. So I wanted to be a little prepared on at least the general stuff, but the rest of it, I didn't go through and make sure I had all this stuff prepared. I'm trying to reply as though it was a conversation. So, like, feedback, whatever. Thank you for your time.